Hi, lovely people. My name's Karlee Porter, and today I want to tell you a story. This story is about me realizing that it's okay to change your mind and it's okay to try new things. In this video, I want to tell you a story about a part of my quilting journey that has helped me to become a better quilter. I will also show you some non-traditional quilting fabrics that are super fun to quilt on, as well as some fabrics that I've already quilted on, and some finished quilts that use non-traditional quilting fabric that might be a little bit surprising. Then I want to take you on a journey of quilting some beautiful teal silky fabric that we can create something with together. If you find this video helpful, I'd love for you to stick around to the end. Now, the vibe of today's video is to help you see where it all started for me with quilting. So back in 2009, right after I got married, I was just looking for a full-time job, and I happened to get a job kind of randomly at a quilting machine manufacturing company, Handy Quilter. And one of the perks of being able to work there was that sometimes they would have refurbished machines that they would allow their employees to take home on loan to make their own quilts with. Now, I had pretty much zero machine quilting experience before working for Handy Quilter. And so when I started learning how to quilt, I didn't even own a domestic sewing machine. I didn't even own a sewing machine that had feed dogs where I could do like the traditional patchwork and piecing methods. So when I got a quilting machine on loan, I thought, okay, I'm going to figure out how to make whatever I want to make using this one machine that I have access to. Now, a quilting machine does not have feed dogs, as I'm sure you know. So putting a zipper into a zipper pouch with a sit-down quilting machine kind of makes no sense, but that's what I ended up doing. So I just started small. I would get little pieces of fabric, little remnants, hand-me-downs. My mom liked to make garments, and so she had some remnants of fabric that were definitely not traditional quilting cotton. And so that's what I started quilting on. So I would take these little like 10 by 10-inch squares of fabric and free motion quilt them on my sit down quilting machine. And then I would cut a slice down the middle and add a zipper with my sit down quilting machine. So I have some zipper pouches that I want to show you that I have made more recently to kind of give you an idea of what I was making. Now, these are not anything super fancy or special, just very simple zipper pouches. Um, nothing too crazy. And so it was really fun when I started making these zipper pouches to find lots of different types of fabric and sometimes cut up clothing, getting hand-me-downs of clothing from people and thinking like, oh, wow, that's cool. That's like kind of a faux leather or some velvet or some corduroy or some denim, and just starting to make these different uh, pouches out of non-traditional fabric, at least non-traditional to quilting. And I also remember when I started quilting, very quickly learning from the quilt police that they would say, oh, you only should use the highest of quality traditional 100% quilting cotton. Even some of the cotton at Joann's is not good enough for us. We only get quilt shop quality fabric. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, cool. And then going to the quilt shop and being like, of course, this is so beautiful, but also I have a very tiny budget. So hand-me-downs it is for now. And so I would just make these little zipper pouches with whatever fabric I had at my disposal. And it was really fun to start figuring out different free motion quilting motifs that I could quilt, where I just would take a small piece of fabric, quilt it on my sit down quilting machine, and then turn it into a zipper pouch, and it was done. And the instant gratification surrounding that kind of practice was really, really enjoyable and satisfying for me. So very quickly, I started to make lots and lots and lots of bags. So I just started making tons and tons of these little zipper pouches, and I would show them to people, and I would uh, just kind of carry around a bag with me with all of these zipper pouches, and people started to say, "Oh, I want one. Okay, I'll make you one. Oh, I want one too. I want one that's this color. Okay, I'll make you one." And I started making these bags, and people started saying like, "Okay, I want this color and I want this color and I want this one and this one." And I was like, okay, maybe I should start selling these. And so I did. So I would just carry around this bag with all of these cosmetic bags inside of it and show them to people like a little traveling saleswoman. and say, okay, they're $12 each or two for 20. And I just was selling them to anyone and everyone. And it was really cool because every single bag was unique and different. There were no two zipper pouches that were the same. And it was really cool to just explore lots of different unique styles of quilting and fabrics. It was so fun to try out all of these different fabrics, um, knowing that the risk was very low and also the projects were finishing so quickly. So after I worked at Handy Quilter, I got a job at a tech company that was about an hour and a half away from my house. And so I started commuting and I would ride the train from my house to my job that was, over an hour away. And when I started working at this tech company, I was using my own little zipper pouches, and some of the people there, mostly men who worked at this tech company, would say, "Oh, that's really cool. I want to buy one for my wife." And so every night when I'd come home from work, I would make 3 or 4 different new ones, and then I would take them to my desk with me at my day job. And these different coworkers would say, "Okay, I like that one. I like this one. I want this one." Or sometimes they would say, "Okay, I'm going to see what you have tomorrow." And every night I was making 4 or 5 different zipper pouches. So before I jump into the next part of the story, I want to show you some non-traditional fabrics that I have put under the needle of my quilting machine so you can just see how cool these different fabric substrates can look when they're quilted. A lot of these fabrics get overlooked within the quilting world because typically quilters, we like to stick to our traditional 100% quilting cotton, especially when we're making bed quilts. It's kind of hard to snuggle with a vinyl on your bed. Um, but I want to show you some of these fabrics and just how cool they can look when they are either free motion quilted or quilted with a computerized quilting machine. So here are the zipper pouches again. This one is a really cool material. I don't even know what type of material it is, but it has kind of a shine to it. Now, a lot of the fabrics that I collect, this one is actually hand-dyed fabric that I dyed myself when I was in college. But a lot of the fabrics that I would collect are fabrics that I don't know exactly where they came from. A lot of times I would shop the clearance rack at Joann's, and if there was a fabric that was pretty or shiny, I would buy it, but it wasn't off the bolt, and so I didn't have information, on what the fabric type actually was. But it's so fun to see how they can be quilted, and that texture provides a whole new dimension to that fabric. So let me show you some gorgeous quilted fabric. So this is a satin fabric that I quilted on my Baby Lock Altair, which is my domestic sewing machine that also allows me to free motion quilt. So you can free motion quilt on any machine that allows you to drop the feed dogs or does not have any feed dogs. Now this is a glittery cotton that I did a wash test with this fabric, and the glitter actually holds up through the wash, which is really nice. This one is a hand-dyed fabric, but I think the fabric itself is a synthetic substrate because it has kind of a sparkle and shine to it that you don't normally see with traditional quilting cotton. It's probably a cotton polyester blend where the cotton fabric is what retains the ink from the dye, but then there are metallics woven into it to give it that shine. So that's another thing that's cool that I have learned over the years is that not all cottons are created equal, and not all polyesters or synthetics are created equal. And there are also cotton poly blends where you can get a mixture, kind of as a best of both worlds with the fabric that you're using. This one is one of my absolute favorites. I am so excited. I'm going to be making a backpack out of this, which here's a little sneak peek of some of the backpacks that I have made with pre-quilted fabric or with fabric that I quilted, but quilted first and then turned into a backpack. But that is a sample for another video. But this fabric is so gorgeous. It's so shiny and has a nice metallic finish to it that I just absolutely love. And so I quilted an entire yard of it. It's about 56 inches wide by 36 inches. So this could make probably a couple of backpacks or a large duffel bag. And this is a computerized quilting design. It's one of my Graffiti Quilting edge-to-edge designs, but I just love the texture of the fabric after it's quilted. It provides this dimension that I think sometimes is just easy to get overlooked with non-traditional quilting fabrics. Usually it's like we use these synthetic substrates or we use traditional cotton. And I really like mixing the two and seeing how I can quilt these fabrics to provide a new texture. This one is like an upholstery fabric, something that you would see for a couch or for cushions. It's a little bit thicker and has a really cool texture to it. So seeing the texture of the fabric already by itself, but then the quilting on top of it, I just love being able to get those different dimensions. This is corduroy fabric. My mom used to like to make her own clothes, especially skirts. She went through a skirt phase where she would just make maxi skirts. And um, so when she cleaned out her sewing room, when she moved, she was like, I have all these fabrics that I don't think I'm going to get to. Do you want them? And I said, yes, please. And then I threw them on my quilting frame with my Pro Stitcher. And now I'm going to turn them into either zipper pouches or backpacks. This is another upholstery style fabric, and it's got like an interesting weave to it. It almost looks like really small scale leopard print, but I really just love the texture. There's so much texture that you can get with non-traditional fabrics versus 100% quilting cottons. So this one is velvet, and I was actually kind of nervous to quilt this one, but the texture really held up really well. I was afraid that the quilting was just going to sink down into the fabric and kind of disappear, but it did not. It really stayed nicely and provided a really beautiful texture. This would make a really pretty like floor throw pillow. This is an actual vintage piece of fabric. I remember my grandma giving this to my mom, and I think my grandma made some throw pillows out of it in the 70s, in the 1970s, and so it's cool to have a piece of that. And I quilted it with a design that matches that aesthetic with the little 4 dots, so you can see the texture of the quilting a little better on the back. I think one thing about non-traditional fabrics that really draws me to them is the textural feel. Us quilters, we love to pet fabric and feel fabric. And so that's something personally that draws me to different types of fabrics is if it's fun to pet or if it's fun to feel. I really love that aspect. This is another beautiful one. I love this bright orange, and it has a subtle cross weave to it where the warp and the weft are different colors of thread. So you can kind of see the ones that are fraying here are a lighter orange, but then the ones that are fraying on the other edge are a darker orange. So you can see how that weave goes together. Another glitter cotton and another glitter cotton. I found this fabric in like I found this fabric in 4 or 5 different colors, and all of them have been so fun to quilt on. And a gorgeous satin fabric. I'm really excited to use this one, but I'm also kind of scared to cut it up because it feels so luxurious. And then finally, the exact opposite of quilting cotton is vinyl, synthetic vinyl. I like to call this mermaid tail because that's what it reminds me of, or unicorn, unicorn skin. So this is a pretty large piece that I've quilted, and I've already made a backpack out of it before, and I'm really excited to try it again. But you can kind of hear the texture of this vinyl fabric. So whew, that's a lot of non-traditional quilting fabrics that are so fun to explore and play with. So when I was making these cosmetic zipper pouches, this was kind of my world of just finding different remnants of things, different scraps of things. I really only needed a 10-inch square of any of the fabrics in order to make one little zipper pouch. And so it was really, really kind of approachable for me to be able to do that because, you know, going to the thrift shop, if you find a t-shirt or a sweater or a dress that has that material, chances are you're going to be able to salvage at least 10 inches of a square. And so I just really loved this exploration of being able to go to my quilting machine and just do a very small little project, something that I could finish a few of them in an evening. It was so cool to feel like I was progressing so much as a quilter in my free motion quilting skills, while also, um, having, like, a finished product at the end, a finished thing that I could kinda show off and show to people and say, like, "Look what I made." And also, when I started selling the cosmetic bags, it was kind of starting to fund my hobby of free motion quilting. So, here's the part of the story that gets kinda sad and a bummer. So when I was commuting on the train to work every day, I would have my big, tote bag filled with these cosmetic bags that I was making, that I was pouring 2 or 3 hours every night to make these cosmetic pouches. And I was sitting on the train and I remember I would like listen to audiobooks or listen to music. And one night I uh, got off the train and my husband picked me up at the train station and we went home, we had dinner, went to bed, and I kid you not, I woke up at like 1 in the morning, like in a fever, like a sweat. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I left my entire tote bag of cosmetic zipper pouches on the train." Like, I didn't think about it for hours that I had left it on the train. I just left my entire inventory. It probably had about 65 zipper pouches in it. Just on the train somewhere. It was crazy. It was like an immediate panic attack of like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I forgot him and I didn't even think about him." It was kind of really devastating. So, I called UTA and I said, "Hey, I left something on the train." And the thing that's so sad too is that all of the zipper pouches had my tag inside of them. I had like a custom tag made, like a label, so that when I sold these bags, people would know how to contact me if they wanted to order another. And so every single bag had my label in it. And I called UTA the next day and I said, I left my belonging on the train. Here's the one that I was on. At this time, I was at this car. I was sitting in this seat. Like, and so they were like, okay, well, we'll call you if anyone turns them in. And I never saw them again. And it was so sad. I was so sad because, I had worked so hard and built up this inventory. And it was also like kind of collecting Pokemon cards in a way where I would look at my own set of zipper pouches that every single one was so unique. They were like all my little babies, like all my little plants that I had birthed. And it was so sad thinking about every single one of them and the work that went into each one of those zipper pouches just for them to be never seen again by me. And it was really sad and I struggled for a few months after that to bring myself to sit down at my quilting machine again and make some more, because I just was so sad at the loss of the tangible things that represented these hours and hours and hours of practice that I had put into my skills. But then obviously after a few months of going through this grief, I had a realization and you're probably already thinking it. The bags were gone, the tangible thing that I had made was gone. But all of the skills that transferred into my body while making those bags, those skills were still here. And that was such a beautiful realization of um, just remembering that even though what I had done in the past, the proof of that or the symbolism of that or like the tangible thing was gone, I still had the power inside to be able to make that thing over and over and over again. I had already done it 100 times, and those skills were not lost, and that was really powerful to remember that. So after those few months, I didn't really jump back into making zipper pouches like I was to the level before in terms of how many I was making every day. But I did find that I was starting to feel motivated again to touch my quilting machine and to keep on building those skills. And it took a real mindset shift that I had to remind myself of multiple times about the importance of recognizing that there's two parts of quilting. And I think there's two parts of being artistic and being creative and learning how to be creative. And those two things are the process and the product, right? The way that we do things, that's one part. And the thing that comes out of it is the other. But those things are also independent of each other. And it's comforting to remember that my skills cannot be seized or forgotten on a train or taken or stolen or sold, really, to anyone. Like those are mine to keep. And that is such a valuable thing to remember, especially as you move through your creative journey, remembering that it's okay to change your mind, it's okay to try new things, it's okay to go down a rabbit hole uh, and really hone in a skill for a specific area of your creative process. And when it comes to that, it's not about the product, it's not about the end result, it's about the stuff that happens inside of you as you learn to become more creative. And for me, losing those bags was kind of a baptism by fire in reminding me that I have to be able to separate those two things. I have to be able to say, my skills exist inside of me, and the thing that my skill created is outside of me, and that I can let it go. And also that I can share it. It was so fun to share my skills and share these little zipper pouches because they were a tangible manifestation of the skills that were inside of me. And so now it's something that I still like to make zipper pouches and I like to share them with people and I like to give them away as gifts. And um, because just like with our quilts, when someone accepts that quilt from us, it's a physical manifestation of something that's intrinsic, that's inside of us. And I think that's really beautiful and something that I try to cling on to. So I thought it would also be cool to show you where my journey has gone since starting with little tiny remnants of non-traditional fabrics. Um, I have loved the experimental practice that comes with using non-traditional fabrics, anything but quilting cotton within our quilts. And so I have a stack of quilts here that I would love to show you that showcase some either integrations of non-traditional quilting fabrics or the whole thing is non-traditional. So before we go to the quilts, I want to show you kind of a current lineup of the types of fabrics that I'm using in my studio and the things that I like to quilt on that are non-traditional, to give you an idea of what possibilities are out there, um, to kind of help you practice keeping an open mind into exploring different textiles and different substrates within your textile practice, because it might surprise you and you might actually really enjoy it. And I think it's easy as quilters to be smushed into a box of right and wrong, good and bad, or good and better and best. And it can get really easy to fall into a rut of not wanting to get outside of the prescription of materials that comes with quilting. So let me show you this stack of gorgeous fabrics. Okay, so I am not even going to be able to tell you the names of these fabrics. A lot of them I purchased as remnants, and so I couldn't tell you what type they are, but you can just get a gander for yourself and imagine how beautiful they are quilted. And later in this video, I'm actually going to um, quilt some non-traditional fabric so you can see how beautiful that texture is. One thing that you'll notice with a lot of these fabrics that I'm really drawn to is the shine and the shimmer and the gloss type feel. I have found that with quilting, especially with free motion quilting, the texture that comes from quilting those layers together is just so um, transformative to the fabric. Look at the shine on that one. Now, some of these fabrics are definitely very stretchy, and non-traditional fabrics do come with their own set of pros and cons on how to manage them. I think that's one thing that quilters really love about traditional cotton is that it's always pretty reliable and predictable. And so that's something that when you start to get out of your comfort zone with fabrics is just to be mindful of and to remember to keep an open mind because different fabrics are going to behave differently. But I think that that doesn't mean you should just give up on trying them. I have found that some of the fabrics that I thought would be like a slam dunk, really easy to integrate into my quilting have been very hard. But then there have been other fabrics that I look at and I'm like, "Ooh, that just looks like it's a nightmare waiting to happen." But then once I try it, it's actually pleasantly surprising how enjoyable it can be. So, I really like to just stay open-minded about different fabrics, and especially if you have a long arm stand-up oriented quilting machine, it's a lot easier to stabilize those layers on your frame versus on a sit down. But typically with a sit down quilting machine, it's just a matter of basting your quilt sandwich well, especially with like quilt basting spray. If you have fabrics that are stretchy or really kind of more fragile, a good little layer of quilt basting spray can be a really good way to kind of get your fabric to behave for you. So in today's video, I want to actually show you the process of putting together a quilt sandwich and getting it under my needle and quilting it so you can kind of see how the stability of your quilt sandwich really goes a long way in taming these non-traditional fabrics that would have otherwise felt a little bit scary to work with. Um, just learning how to have a strong, steady, stable quilt sandwich will make a world of difference as you explore different types of fabric. So as you can see, I really like to explore with satin and silk. Anything shiny or sparkly, kind of it it really grabs me and pulls me in. Um, and that's another thing that I like about quilting on non-traditional fabrics is I want not only the end result to be beautiful, but I also want to really enjoy the process. And if I find a fabric that I think is really pretty to look at, then it's a lot more enjoyable while I'm quilting to look at it for a few hours because I don't get tired of looking at it, right? And I think that's pretty common and normal for all quilters. We choose fabrics that we're drawn to and that we think the fabric itself is already really beautiful. And so, that's something that's a normal aspect for quilters is to choose fabrics that are fun to look at. And so for me, with non-traditional fabrics, it's really no different. And you can see how some of these fabrics are different thicknesses. Some are kind of really dainty and fragile, and then others are really super strong and thick. And being able to explore those and work with those is such a great skill to have as a quilter, as a fiber artist, as a textile artist. Um, and it's okay to change your mind about things too. I have found that there are some fabrics that I've tried and I thought that I was going to love them, or I did love them, but didn't love using them. And being able to say, like, yeah, I used to be into that and I'm not anymore. It's totally okay to change your mind because, after all, they are your quilts. This snake skin fabric I am so excited to quilt with, but I'm also very scared because I bought this at Joann's when she went out of business, so I have a very finite amount of it, and I'm so scared to quilt it, and it also is stretchy, and so I'm like, "Oh, I don't wanna mess it up." This is definitely a fabric for me that I have anxiety around because I don't wanna ruin it. And that's also, I also realize that that's a common, quilting mentality, is loving your fabric so much that you become scared to cut into it for fear of ruining it. But that's also something that we have to get over as quilters, right? If we wanna become the best quilter we can be, sometimes we gotta crack a few eggs and make an omelet. So let me show you some finished quilts that I have integrated non-traditional quilting fabrics into. So this bag is really super cool. So this is cork fabric that I got from my friend Jessica from So Many Creations. And I thought, y'all, I thought cork was going to be very scary to quilt in, or I thought the way that I quilt it so densely, I thought it was just going to fall apart the way I imagine like cork boards peeling and chipping. It is not that way. Cork is so, so fun to quilt with. Let me show you this up close. So you can see the quilting on this, especially on the inside, is very, very dense and tight. And this is a fabric that I found that I changed my mind after using it. Before I used it, I was very nervous and scared that I was just going to destroy it. In fact, after Jessica gave me this fabric, it took me a good probably 2 years before I had the guts to quilt it because I was so afraid that I was going to ruin it with how dense my quilting is. But it has held up so beautifully, and cork fabric really has such strong longevity to it. I would liken it to leather very much. It's got that stability that's really, really nice. So, cork fabric, definitely a fun one to quilt with. Now, I didn't show you in my stack of fabrics, but have you ever quilted with fleece? Look at the gorgeous texture of the backing of this quilt. So the front of this quilt, this is actually a custom printed quilt top from Honest Fabric. This one is called Oh My Stars. And for the backing, I used fleece. I think it's called like Arctic fleece or polar fleece or something. Um, but the texture is just so, so beautiful. And one thing I love about using fleece as a backing for quilts is that I can really quilt the heck out of the top. You can see that my quilting is pretty dense and it holds up nicely, and this quilt is still very super snuggly, which I love. So fleece is another fun fabric. And if you are on a budget and you don't want to buy fleece by the bolt or by off of the bolt, um, a really great hack is to get a fleece blanket or a plush blanket from Walmart and use that as your backing. Um, I love that, especially because there's no seams in the back of it. Now, this is another one. So same thing here. This is a custom printed quilt top from Honest Fabric. And this one is called Rainbow A Go Go. And the back, I used white fleece. And this quilt has been washed a couple times, so you can see it has a nice crinkle to it. But you guys know that I'm a quilting show off. And so to be able to really do some crazy in-depth quilting and have it show up really nicely on the backing is just my jam. So again, fleece, especially for a backing, is really, really fun. And again, if you find yourself being a very dense quilter, like me, I'm a dense quilter. Um, Fleece is kind of a good insurance policy that your quilt will remain snuggly even if you quilt the hell out of it. So, fleece. Consider fleece if you haven't. Um, Now, okay, I love this quilt. This is called uh, Kiwi Commando. And this fabric is very special to me. This is a half yard bundle from Cherrywood Hand Dyed Fabrics of kiwi berry. So that's my favorite color gradient from Cherrywood. And when I was laying this quilt out, I knew I wanted to do the scalloped edges along the side. But when I laid out the rows, I was short by 4 triangles. And so I thought to myself, what is the opposite of cherrywood hand-dyed fabric? And I thought, I know, metallic, silvery, synthetic polyester. And so that's what I added in those triangles was a very, very shiny, the most shiny fabric that I could find of silver. And the back of this quilt is also really beautiful. So this is like satin evening gown fabric that I also bought at Joann's. So it's got a really nice, beautiful shine to it. And again, you can see the quilting really well. And it also makes this quilt very soft and snuggleable. And I named this quilt Kiwi Commando because I wanted scalloped edges, but I didn't know how to bind scalloped edges, and so I just have never bound this quilt, and so it's kind of like it was going commando. So kiwi for the color line, kiwi berry, commando because it ain't got no undies on. So that is another good example of how you can integrate non-traditional fabrics into your quilts. It's not like you have to make a whole quilt that's all just synthetic polyester vinyl, right? But sometimes just putting those little pops of sparkle is a nice change of pace. When I made this quilt, I stabilized this silver fabric just with whatever stabilizer. I don't know, nothing fancy. Um, so that when I pieced it into the quilt, it basically behaved like quilting cotton, which was really nice. So, all right. Now, this next quilt, the backing is just Kona Cotton Solid, but the front is black satin, and the colorful diamonds are custom printed fabric from Honest Fabric. So I had some panels printed for my graffiti quilting online class, and I had some extra margin around the edges, and I thought, why not print some rainbows? So I did some rainbow stripes, and then I ended up cutting those into strips and then piecing them into a Lone Star. And so this quilt has the whole front of the quilt is uh, there's no quilting cotton in it. The star is polyester and then the black is satin. But I just love again that gorgeous soft texture. It just has such a nice, beautiful, soft feel to it. And this quilt is very drapey, and I think part of that is, one, because of the batting, but also because that satin fabric was designed to be drapey. It's normally for, like an evening gown or something like pajamas. And so it has a very smooth finish to it, which is really, really nice. Now, I do have to say that this black fabric, piecing okay, piecing with non-traditional fabrics is definitely a different vibe than quilting non-traditional fabrics. I have found that with quilting non-traditional fabrics, it is a lot easier to get your sandwich put together or get it loaded onto your quilting frame and then just get it quilted. Even quilting on a sit down when you've basted it, um, it's very stable. But piecing it, y'all, and like pressing your seams, it's a little crazier. So this one, luckily it wasn't too bad. One thing that I found to be helpful is if your non-traditional fabric has the ability to still snip and rip, especially if it's like a shifty fabric, that can help keep things on track because sometimes cutting fabrics that are shifty, if the fabric is pulled one way or the other, then when you cut it, when it goes straight, it has a wave in it. Um, so when I have made these quilts and posted about them on social media while I'm working on them, everyone is like, stabilize your fabric, stabilize your fabric. And y'all, I'm just not here to stabilize fabric. I was not put on this earth to stabilize fabric all day. So I can't bring myself to have the discipline to stabilize the fabric. I just try to piece it all in one sitting, be mindful of it, and kind of just handle it and force it to do what I want, and then get it quilted as soon as I can. So something to think about. Quilting non-traditional fabrics and piecing non-traditional fabrics are still two different skills. The way piecing quilting cotton and quilting cotton are also two different skills. So something to think about. Now, the next quilt that I want to show you is kind of like a crowned glory of uh, using non-traditional fabric in a quilt, and it is so beautiful. But y'all, it was a biatch to piece it, especially because I had to use templates for the pattern and long, skinny strips. And again, I am too stubborn to stabilize the fabric, but I my quilting skills pulled through for the lack of piecing skills that I had, and it still turned out so gorgeous. So this quilt is, I call it Siren Song because this damn fabric lured me to my death, but it was very much worth it. And the piecing pattern that I used is Cosmic Feathers by Tara Lee Quiltery. Um, and this quilt is so, so gorgeous. And all of the rainbows in it are the same rainbow stripes from this quilt that I just showed you. Um, and so yeah, the whole front of this quilt is non-traditional fabric as well because of all those rainbows. The rainbow fabric is polyester. I'm not going to open it all the way, but I will rotate it so you can see each of the quadrants. So like, come on, you guys, look at the texture of this silk satin fabric. It looks like carved metallic metal, right? Like it looks like a backsplash or like a ceiling tile that's been carved into. Let me show you this quadrant of it. Isn't that just so, so gorgeous? I just can't handle how much I love this quilt. It's so beautiful. So for the backing, I just did Kona Cotton Solid green. Even the binding is custom printed rainbow stripes that kind of match that same color. Um, and once the quilt top was constructed and put together, I quilted this on a long arm quilting machine, and it was so enjoyable because the fabric just it's like it's so slippery. It's like my quilting machine had a slip and slide fun time quilting, and the texture, I just cannot get over the texture. Like you can't get this pop and pizzazz and zing and pep with traditional quilting cotton. Like if I had just used gray cotton fabric, it just would not have the same, X factor, that same pop to it. So, um so yeah, I'm very interested in keeping my mind open when it comes to non-traditional fabrics because sometimes they turn out amazing. And this is a good example. So those were functional quilts that I showed you. Let me show you some wall hangings that also quilt on non-traditional fabric. Okay, so this one is a great example of where you can start in just trying out different fabrics. So this quilt is very small. It's, I don't know, 10 inches by 10 inches. And it has a really, really cool texture to it. For the back, I just used Kona Cotton Solid and regular batting and bound it with regular Kona Cotton Solid. But sometimes just starting small, like you don't need to make a gigantic 110-inch quilt of non-traditional fabrics, but sometimes just starting small, think of it as kind of like speed dating. Sometimes it's nice to just get out of your head and into a piece of fabric and see what it's like. And if you hate it, then it's only 10 inches. You don't have to worry anymore. Okay, here is another one. So the front of this quilt is hand-dyed fabric. Very, I mean, traditional in quilting, right? We see a lot of batiks in quilting. But then for the backing, I used that same black satin fabric. Has a nice shine to it. And this is actually a computerized quilting design. So I stitched this out on my Pro Stitcher. This collection is called the Take Flight Butterfly Collection. Super beautiful. All right, this next one, same. This is that same black satin fabric. And on the back, I actually used a silk fabric. And I love how the light refracts off of silky satin style fabrics. I just love the shine and the texture. I mean, you know this about me. I live in the quilting era of the quilt making process. So anything that I can do to accentuate the texture of the quilting, Imma do it. Now this one is also really fun. This is another, stitch out of the Take Flight Butterfly collection in a little bit smaller size, and that same blue satin on the back. Okay, and this one is free motion quilted. Let me show you the back of it first. So this is just black Kona cotton solid, nothing fancy, just traditional quilting cotton. However, on the front, I used this material. So this is actually the thermal material that you would make your grocery bags out of, your reusable grocery bags or oven mitts with. But I saw it on the sale rack at Joann's years and years ago, and it was on sale and it was shiny, and so I bought it. And then I actually couched the quilting. So not only is there thread in here, but I used a sock yarn, a variegated sock yarn that changed colors. And so this is all from one skein of sock yarn, but it has all those bright colors because it was variegated. And this quilt is so, so, so much fun to show to people. So a lot of fun non-traditional fabrics. So I thought it would be fun to show you the step-by-step process of if I were to make a zipper pouch again today using non-traditional fabrics like I did 15 years ago, what that would look like. So I have this bolt of this gorgeous, I don't know why, let me grab my chair. I don't know why I'm kneeling down. So I have this gorgeous bolt of teal silky fabric. It's got kind of a texture to it. It's very flowy and um, yeah, I love it. And then I also have a bunch of different types of thread that I am going to try quilting on it. So different colors, different types. I've got some 40 weight Magnifico, 12 weight spaghetti thread. Here's the thing about spaghetti thread. This is 12 weight from Wonderfil, and it is gorgeous and packs a punch, but it's a little more temperamental. So we'll see how that goes. Um, some OMNI thread by Superior. This is just a good solid workhorse long arming thread, but it's not shiny, which is like, okay, not my favorite because of that. It gets docked points, but it is still beautiful and reliable. I've got some King Tut variegated thread, which should be fun. I honestly don't use variegated thread very often, so this is a little bit out of my comfort zone as far as thread. And then some gorgeous 40 weight thread that is very high shine, which is like can't go wrong there. And green and teal, that's going to be beautiful. So let's jump in. We're going to quilt this fabric. We are going to cut it up and cut it into pieces where we can make a little zipper pouch, and we will turn it into a zipper pouch. All right, let's grab the sewing machine and get that set up and do some sewing. So I'm using my Baby Lock Altair 2, and I've got my quilted pieces, my lining pieces, because the tension isn't great on the back of this. And so I'm gonna hide that with the lining. I've got my zipper. I also have my zipper edge covers. So these are going to cover the sides of my zipper. I'm just using this ribbon remnant. And then I've got these cute bright colored ribbons that will be a little like holding hook, kind of like this. So like that, but a skinnier one. All right, so I am using this ribbon to just cover the edges of my zipper. I like to finish those edges instead of having the zipper just go down into the edge of the um, the bag. So like with this one that I've made, you can see that the zipper just goes in like that. But I don't love that look. I usually like to do a more polished edge, kind of like this. So that's what I'm going to be using the ribbon for. So before I use the zipper, I'm going to cover the edges with some ribbon and trim off the excess underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with sewing this down. Oh, maybe I should refill my bobbin. I also have invisible thread in the bobbin, so I'm going to wind a new one. Okay, so I'm going to sew this down. I'm going to sew this down like so. So like that. And then I'm going to sew it down again from the top and do a top stitch. Like so. That's just going to hold that nicely in place. We're going to do the same thing, whoops, to the other side of the zipper as well. And I'm going to give myself plenty, even if I need to cut it off later. And I also like to torch my edges just so that they don't fray while I'm working with them, because this stuff likes to fray. Right, so now I'm going to do the same thing with the other side of the zipper. So I can start to get a feel for how wide the zipper needs to be to still fit the bag. So I can do it just, a little bit over this. So now I want to, oops. So now I want to center my zipper so that I have equal amounts of ribbon, white ribbon, on both sides. Okay, and now I'm going to take my lining fabric and put that over the top of this and line it up with my zipper as well, like so. And then my zipper pull, I need to get that out of the way. Set that down past my foot. And okay, now here's the cool part about doing the lining, is that we take this, and we take this, and we fold that like so. And then we're going to top stitch down this, and it's going to cover this seam all the way, like so. So we're going to bend that quilted layer flat. And I cut my lining piece to be bigger than my quilted piece on all sides, and that's okay. And I'll show you why. Okay, so now we have our top stitch and our bottom stitch, and now that seam is nice and hidden, and when we open our zipper in the bag, it's not ever going to catch on anything. It's nice and protected. And that's why I like doing these edges, is so that the zipper is just protected all the way around. You don't have to worry about the zipper coming undone ever. Okay, so we've done that with one side, and now we are going to do the same with the other side. So how did this go? Like that. So like this. So we'll flip that, and we want to line those up. And then we also want our lining piece. Now, if I were doing like a tag, I could do the tag right in here so that it would be on the inside of the bag. And it wouldn't be too late to add that there, but I'm not going to for this. Okay, so I'm going to open the zipper. And we want to make sure that our two quilted pieces are lined up this way. And then our zipper lined up that way. Okay, and then our fabric, our lining fabric goes in there just a little bit past those, like so. And we're going to line up all those layers. I'm going to get this zipper pull moved out of the way. Sneak it past that. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing with this side. So there's our lining and our quilt top fabric. We're going to top stitch that, and that is going to put our zipper in really nicely. Just making sure those layers stay flat. Okay, we are almost done. See how nice that looks on the inside? Covers all of that quilting, especially the spots where I had issues with the tension. Okay, now we are going to fold these like this. So there's our zipper in the middle, and we're going to basically sew around the edge of our quilted piece, and then all the way around our lining, and then we are going to leave a hole in the lining, and we're going to flip it all inside out from that. So I like to make my little zipper pieces fold in like that, right there. And that's going to give us a nice little dimple on the outside, like so. Okay. So we can start in this corner, and I'm going to move my needle over to 1/4 inch. Okay, and then let's move our zippers out of the way. And then I like to backstitch over where my little holder is. And then also where my ribbon is. There we go. Okay, so I like to get to the corner and then come in just a little bit, even though this is the hole that we're coming through. I like to come in a little bit and just backstitch so that there's some strength for when we go turn it inside out. But I like to kind of leave a big hole if I can. Like I don't want a hole that's just little. I want to make it big if I can so that there's enough to twist it around and pull it through. So now I'm going to come down here more. In the corner, rotate, and then I'm also going to dimple that down. And then back stitch that spot. And now we can sew this shut. Okay, now here is the moment of truth. So now I'm going to flip this inside out. Oh, I didn't open my zipper all the way, so gotta get my zipper open. Sometimes that can be tricky. Okay, now here's the cool part. So we're gonna give birth through our lining, like so. Okay, so we're gonna, I guess opposite give birth, we're gonna put our quilted spot back in here. Pop out our corners of our lining fabric. Okay, and our bag is open. All right, so now we're gonna fold that down in there, get it out of the way. We're gonna smush it down in there. Okay, and now the last thing that we need to do, pull that out halfway. Okay, so now we just need to close this edge. So I like to just fold it over and we can pin it a couple times because we don't want the raw edge sticking out. We want to fold it over. And if you are not lazy, you can use your iron. But if you are lazy, you can just use your pins. So, like so, essentially like that. So see that seam? And then we're going to stitch it down. And if you're a renegade, you can just go for it. Let's see if I can just do it. Okay, so I'm going to fold that. And I'm getting really close to the edge so that it keeps that fold down like we're wanting. And this doesn't have to be perfect because it's the inside of the bag, but it's gonna look nice. Okay, so we got our seam there. Now let's get it folded all the way through. So here's the magic part. So there's the inside of the bag, the outside of the bag. Now we're gonna flip it. See that nice finished edge inside? And look at this. Ooh, nice finished edge on the outside, and a nice finished edge over here. I'm gonna pop out those little dimples. Oh, look how cute. Okay, and then get our little bottom corners pushed all the way out. Another reason we make the lining fabric a little bit bigger is so that we can push out these corners and not rip our lining fabric because we can push it down as far as those corners need to go. So push those corners out, and look at that. Look how cute. So now we've got our lining fabric on the inside. So pretty. And every edge seam is finished. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at that. So beautiful. Nice and smooth. So I could have centered it better. Notice that the side is longer and the side is shorter, but you know what? It's abstract. It's asymmetry. And asymmetrical stuff is modern. So I did it on purpose. We'll go with that. All right, y'all. We have it. Look how cute these zipper pouches turned out. I love them so much. It's so fun when they're finished and put together, just how easy it is to go back and really appreciate the beautiful stitching. Like, come on. Are we so for real right now? I love them so much. So these are gonna make great gifts. I don't know where they're gonna go yet, but one thing is for sure, I'm definitely going to need to quilt more of this teal, satin, silky, shiny fabric because it is addicting. Now, I'm sure that we all have different hardships in our creative journey. Maybe you have lost the pieces of art or the quilts or the quilted items that you've made somehow, whether you left them on a train or whatever the case may be. But I hope that you won't forget that those skills are still inside of you, and that creativity, that art, that beauty, that passion, that's all in here. And so just keep doing what you're doing so that you can get all of that passion out of your system and make something tangible with it. The coolest thing about quilted items or quilts in general is that it's a manifestation of the love and skills that we have inside of us. The quilts that you make only exist because you made them. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my little story. And I hope that you remember that sometimes when you lose the products of your skills, it can be hard, but you can always bounce back. And the most important part is that the skills are still inside of you. So never forget that, because no one can take those from you. No one can buy those from you. And they just get stronger the more that you practice. If you enjoyed this video, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel here. And if you would like to be kept in the loop of all of the things I have going on, whether they are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, wherever, I would love for you to check the description and join my email newsletter list. I consistently give out freebies and fun quilting things, and it's a really great way to keep up to date on everything that's going on in the world of Karlee Porter. Also, if you want to get your hands on some of your own non-traditional fat quarters, I would love for you to check the link in the description where you can grab some. I have so many amazing, really cool, crazy, non-traditional fabrics that I would love to share with you. So be sure to check that out. And don't forget to practice your quilting, and I will see you next time. Until then, happy quilting.